So I'd say we've had a very good first half of the season, and chances are it's only going to get better as McLaren improve race by race and Red Bull continue to fall off with Perez still in the car. But that means we've got to rank the drivers based off their first half of the year, so without further ado, subscribe and let's do this. By spinning a wheel to determine the order we talk about the drivers, we start with Nico Hülkenberg. What a great first half it's been for Hulk. I fully expected Haas to suck ass, but turns out I do not know wheel and they're actually pretty good. Hulk has scored points 5 times this year, is 11th in the standings and has nearly 6 times as many points as his teammate. For our first ranking it has to be an S. He's made like one mistake, which is probably the start of Bahrain, but since then, spotless. Next is Ocon, and it's been a very mixed one for the Frenchie. From crashing into his teammate and nearly getting dropped for a race, to scoring one less point than Gasly come the summer break. He's actually secured his future with Haas, so it's going to be interesting to see if he beats Pierre in the second half of the season. Ocon has probably got to go and see. It's not been amazing, but it's not been Perez levels of awful. And speaking of Perez, he's next. A great start to the year followed by probably the worst run of form in centuries. I'm obviously exaggerating, but still, he's really shown Max off to be the exceptional driver that he is, because while Verstappen wins, Perez is like 11th and getting out-qualified by Logan Sargent. He's been miles off it. He's 7th in the standings while Max is 78 points clear in first, and he's about to get jumped by both Mercedes as they start to improve. He only deserves F tier. Now it's Russell, and it's another mixed bag for George. The highs have been high, but the lows have been low. From losing it in Australia to winning in Austria and then retiring from the lead in Britain, and then his disqualification in Belgium after winning. He's tangled with his teammate, sent around everyone at turn 1 in Spain, the best racing of the season with Norris in that same race, and has been pretty consistent barring the low races, so it's gonna be a B for Osama bin Russell. And now the championship leader, Maxi Pad. He's been carrying Red Bull once again on his own 2 shoulders, and couple that with some strategies from Red Bull, mistakes from his mechanics and from himself, and yet he's still 78 points clear of Norris in the standings. It's easy to have recency bias from his last few races which haven't been his best. He had to deal with constant dive bombing from Lando in Austria as he got flashbacks to the back end of 2021. He nearly caught Lewis in Silverstone despite the Red Bull not even nearly being the quickest car. And then in Hungary he had a clumsy Sunday where he bitched on the radio, which was pretty funny. And then in Belgium he took a grid penalty after getting pole by 6 tenths, dropped down to 11th, and then finished 4th in the race ahead of Lando who finished like 3rd. But don't let these last few races distract you from the good. Bahrain made us think the year was over straight away. In Imola, he beat Lando in a slower car, and for parts of the season, he's been winning in the 2nd, 3rd quickest car. Give Max his flowers, he deserves it. He's leading the championship, it has to be S. And now we go from 1st in the championship to 21st with Valtteri Bottas. Now, the standings do not tell the full story. Bottas has been way more consistent in that awful car and would have probably scored points at China had the car not conked out. We are talking about a driver in the worst team here, so it's hard to find much to talk about, but he's not done a lot wrong. It's a tractor, so I think Bottas gets a C. Ricciardo is a very tricky one to rank because while he has finished 4th in a race, albeit in a sprint, he only has 3-point scoring finishes in the real races, where Yuki has 7. Daniel has 12 points to Yuki's 22, and apart from a few races in the second half of the first 12 races, he's been comprehensively beaten by Tsunoda. He's not doing himself any favours, and he was unlucky in China and Japan as he got taken out by other drivers, with him not at fault, but even still, it's 9-5 to Yuki in qualifying, and he's behind in the championship. It has to be a C for Daniel. We've got Gasly next, and as already discussed, Ocon has started to improve as the season has gone on. But let's not forget, Gasly did have a 4-race straight scoring run which brought a massive 6 points to the Alpine team. He's ahead of Ocon in the standings despite being beaten more times by it, so it's also going to be a C. Pierre's bestie, Yuki Tsunoda, is up now, and what a first half it's been. He's got 22 points in the walking billboard car, and apart from a mistake at Canada which threw him out the points and the that went down in the first race, Yuki's been very good. And keep in mind, he's only 24. It seems like he's been around for years. It has to be an A for Yuki Tsunoda. Oh god. Alright, look who it is. Logan Sargent is next. Yeah, Logan has fully justified my reasons that I gave back in February. And while the Williams has been worse compared to last year, he's behind Zhou in the standings for God's sake, while Albon has scored 4 points. He still hasn't out-qualified Albon, and I remember seeing a quote from him a few races ago saying how he was happy with how he drove, and that was after he came like 15th. It's been a shocking first half, let's just say. And yes, he did have that awful team decision go against him in Australia, which was bullshit, but I do see some people use that to defend everything else. Like, that race was not going to be the one where he actually finished in the points and out-qualified Alex. Couple that with the lazy spin in Canada, the crash crashed with Magnussen in Miami, but the row of solid purples and pinks on the wiki page, yeah, it's not looking good. It has to be the second F of the video. F for freedom, what can you say? Alright, the Logan slander is over, and now it is Guan Yu Zhou. I can't. This man fooled us in Bahrain. He drove a great race and finished 11th in the tractor, and I was looking like a genius. Results do not tell the full picture. He's been way more crash prone, he's nearly been whitewashed in qualifying, and Bottas has smashed him. The car is awful, yes, but he has somehow been worse. D tier for Mr. Social Credit. Moving back up to the top half of the table, and it's Carlos Sainz. He started this year in amazing form. He scored P3 in Bahrain, then got appendicitis, came back 2 weeks later and won the Australian Grand Prix. If we ignore the withdrawal from Jeddah, he scored points in all of the first 8 races, and one better, he was in the top 5 for all of those. Then came Canada, where he was just off it and then retired himself and Albon, and since then it's been a bit less good. Still pretty good though, with 3 P6s, a P5 and a third. He's been out qualified by Leclerc in 8 races to Carlos's 5, but he's been consistent, which you've got to give props for. So I'll put Carlos in A. This year's terror was not Logan Sargent, because instead it was Kevin Magnussen. K-Mag has always been an aggressive, no holds barred driver, but me as he overstepped the mark a bit this year. I'm not complaining, because it's put Haas in contention for P6 and also made the first third of the season very entertaining. In that time, he nearly picked up enough penalty points to get a race ban, which is pretty funny. But let's go through his season though, because this deserves an award. In Bahrain, he finished 12th. In Saudi, he did some dodgy defending, which got him 2 10-second time penalties, but did get Hulk at 10th place. He finished 10th at Australia, got a 10-second penalty for crashing with Tsunoda in China, did some of the most dodgy racing in the Miami sprint, which got him 3 10-second penalties and a 5-second, but did get Hulkenberg 2 points. Had a massive shot in Monaco, which wasn't his fault, and then a 12th at Canada, 17th at Spain, 8th at Austria, 12th at Silverstone, 15th at Hungary, and 14th at Belgium. These results are very bad compared to Hulkenberg, and he's not been consistent at all. Now, this might be controversial, but purely because watching him race is so goddamn funny live, I'm putting him in B. I don't give a f. Who knew the Kevin Magnussen segment would be the longest one? But hey, now it's time for Oscar Piastri. Oscar became the 7th different winner this season with his, let's say, controversial win at Hungary. McLaren have screwed him over many a time to help Lando, and that all came together in Hungary to give him his maiden win, which he deserved. Yes, his tyre management still isn't the best, and that is what has cost him a few results, but overall, he's been great, and McLaren have to have one of the best lineups on the grid. I'd even say it's better than Mercedes. Oscar is going to go in A. And talking about Mercedes lineup, next is Hamilton. George had the upper edge in the first half of the first half, but recently, Lewis has turned it on and is finally making my prediction of him being 3rd in the standings look quite smart. He's been very consistent, failing to score just once all season, and had he not conked out in Australia, he might well have scored in all of them. He won at Silverstone again, which was great to see, and I'm looking forward to next year when we see him drive a Ferrari. It's either going to be great or it's going to be absolute hell. I'm excited for either though, and Lewis is going to go in A. Albon is next, and once again it's been an Albon season. Similar to 2022 when Williams were the worst car, Albon has still somehow managed to score points in that box. It didn't help that he totaled a chassis in Australia, then binned it in Japan, and that crippled the team for parts of the season, but P9s in Monaco and Silverstone, as well as a really unlucky retirement in Canada while in the points, have shown why he is such a great driver. So it's going to be a B for Albon. We're moving to the Aston Martin camp now, and it's time to rank Sigma Alonso. Compared to last year, it's been pretty slow, but looking at the first 6 races, like last year, he was on fire. But since Miami, it's been pretty rough. Stroll's actually beaten him a few times as the car has slipped further back, and he has more than double Lance's points, so Alonso has definitely done his job. It's going to be a B for the Giga Chad. And next is his teammate. Stroll has once again been in the spotlight for being a bit shit at times. He crashed out of the points in Jeddah, he punted Ricciardo in China and didn't take responsibility. As said before, his teammate has more than double his points, and he hasn't been amazing in qualifying. If the car can get better, hopefully Stroll improves with it. For now though, it's a C. To finish us off today, we have Leclerc and Norris, and we will start with the Ferrari driver. Despite being shafted by Ferrari race after race recently, Charles is still somehow 3rd in the standings. He finally won his home race, he got shocked P2 last time out in Belgium, and has scored well all season, barring Canada, Austria and Silverstone. It's going to be an A for Charles Leclerc. And so, Lando. What a year it's been for him so far. Finally won a race, has been consistent all year, and is starting to grow a bit of an ego.
You had a fast car 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
You had it. You had a quick car. You made the most of it. Now it's us.
Yeah, people did not like that one. He's had a few spats with Verstappen, pushed him off the road a few times, bottled like 3 or 4 potential wins, and ended the first half of the season by going wide at turn 1 and finishing 5th in Belgium. It's been nothing short of amazing though, and no one expected him to be 2nd in February, but with the car McLaren have now, he should be closer to Verstappen in the standings. He's 78 points off now, but Lando is gonna get an S because 2nd is a big overachievement. So that's all my reasons. Now time for the final rankings. This tier list isn't in order at the moment, so let me just change that around and go through my driver rankings 20th to 1st. Starting in 20th, I had to put Logan Sargent. I just could not put anyone behind him. He's so bad. In 19th, it's Perez because he's just awful. In 18th is of course Zhou, as he was the only driver in D. 17th is Bottas, who has got the most out of an awful car. In 16th and 15th, it's the Alpine pair, but it's Ocon first and then Gasly. Stroll is next in 14th, and after that, it's Ricciardo. 12th is Magnussen, as he is a low B, and I am dying on this hill. Magnussen gave us stuff to watch in the first few races, and I respect that. Albon comes next in 11th, a familiar position for him. Then it's Alonso in 10th, which might be a bit low, but I don't know. 9th is George Russell, and 8th is Carlos Sainz. In 7th, I've put Yuki Tsunoda, and then in 6th, it's Hamilton. 5th is Leclerc, and 4th is Oscar Piastri. And so that leaves us with 3 drivers. In 3rd, I've put Lando. Even though he is outperforming expectations, he's bottled quite a few fights at wins this year, either through poor qualifying or mistakes in races, most notably his race starts. And in 2nd, I've put Hulkenberg, who has not put many feet wrong this year and has been incredibly consistent. So that leaves us with obviously Verstappen in 1st. It's definitely not as clear cut as last year, but he is still the best driver in F1 without a shadow of a doubt. This is all good, but what if I made one of the best seasons in the last few years, 2021, a little more spicy? Well, that video will be on screen when I make it, but for now, check out how Bugatti did when I put them in F1.